Hello everyone, what's up? In this video I'm going to show you how I applied a mottled candy red finish to this Custodes Caladius. Even though this was my very first time airbrushing candy red, the method I came up with worked really well and it's easily repeatable. Follow the steps that I'm about to share with you and your results will be every bit as good as mine. The starting point for this project is my favorite dark metallic, Metallic Smoke by AK Interactive. I airbrushed this neat at around 20 psi over my usual matte black primer, also by AK. Do not thin extreme metal paints and apply them in several successive layers for best results. As you can see, I'm building up this dark metallic very gradually and taking care to leave the recesses black. This is intentional as it will create shading later. It's important to keep the airbrush in motion, but if you make any mistakes, and you will see me make some later, it is very unlikely that this will affect the end result. As you can see, this paint creates a super realistic finish, same as all the others in the extreme metals range. These are enamel paints, and as such, they're a pleasure to airbrush and pretty tough when cured, but highly toxic. Unlike in a recent AK Interactive video, make absolutely sure to wear a respirator and to use an extractor when using these paints. The finish is super realistic, but I'm sure that you can tell that it's more reflective in some areas than in others. This is because we have used a matte primer rather than a satin or a gloss one, which would be much better suited to creating a highly reflective finish. So if you want an even higher level of shine, just apply gloss black primer instead. So this is the Caladius after applying the Metallic Smoke to all areas that would either remain in a color like this or become candy red. At this stage I was happy with the results, but a little bit apprehensive about the next steps. Now it was a time to apply a much brighter metallic paint and to introduce my secret weapon. This is it, guys, a Scotch-Brite pad which I picked at in order to make it thinner. What the hell am I going to use this for, you ask? I'm using it as a stencil, as you will see in a second. I had never done this with metallics, but I had a feeling that it'd work nicely. After that initial spraying, I could see that this was definitely going to work. When I checked it the second time, I couldn't help but grin from ear to ear. And so I kept going, spraying a little bit more, then checking, trying to make sure that all the areas of the panel were covered and that there was enough of the darker metal showing. Happy with that first panel, I continued with the rest, now completely certain that I had made the right choice of materials and techniques. Now this was just an experiment on my part, but I knew that if I was right about this, the mottled metallic undercoat would make a huge difference to the candy red finish. That second panel was looking even better than the first one, which was great to see. Now that I was more relaxed, I was really enjoying myself. In any case, the best thing was that each panel looked totally different from the others. The pattern for this pad was inherently random, much more so than with an actual stencil. Here you can see the results at this stage. I'm sure you'll agree that this looks pretty awesome. By the way, tell me in the comments if you can identify an older video of mine where I also use my Scotch-Brite stencil secret weapon. If you're enjoying this video, guys, consider joining the Race for Terra YouTube membership, which starts at only €1 a month. If you join the mid or top tiers, you will have access to ad-free, exclusive members-only videos, among other things. Check out the other perks. Time for the main event. This is Tamiya Clear Red. My plan was to thin it 50% with lacquer thinner with retarder rather than with X20A, which is what everybody uses. Why do they use X20A? Because it's the only Tamiya thinner known to most people. However, the spraying characteristics of lacquer thinner are vastly superior. I knew it would allow me to apply the candy red in multiple thin coats, and to avoid the grainy or patchy surface finish, which is quite common when spraying Tamiya clear paints in 1 or 2 thick, wet coats. Or at least that was the theory. I'd never airbrushed candy red before, not even on a piece of plastic card. So, fingers crossed. This is my first pass. I'm spraying this at 20 psi, but spraying far more air than paint. As you can see, I'm going very gentle on the trigger. Second pass. I'm trying to cover the panel in a uniform fashion and making sure that the airbrush is in motion all the time. Third pass. Now I'm beginning to depress the trigger further back, increasing the amount of paint flow. The red is beginning to increase in opacity, but gradually. Fourth pass. As you can see from the fumes, I'm now spraying more aggressively, comparatively speaking. Oh, and I should mention that I let the panel dry for like 30 seconds in between coats. Time to check. I was happy with this, but I knew it wasn't done yet. Fifth pass. It was a quicker one, but I wanted to make sure that I hit all the edges of the panel. Time to check again. Now I was really happy with the result. Okay, now onto the second panel. I'll play it faster this time, but let's recap to make sure the process is clear. First pass with absolutely minimal paint flow. Second pass, pulling back on the trigger a wee bit more. Notice how I'm keeping the airbrush in motion and making sure that all the areas of the panel are covered as homogeneously as possible, including the edges. Third pass, now a little bit more aggressive than the previous one. Fourth pass, same as before. Don't forget that I'll let the paint dry for a few seconds between coats. These are the results that I obtained with this method. Again, here's the formula. 4 or 5 coats per panel, rather than 1 or 2 as most people do. Lacquer thinner in 1:1 ratio, rather than X20A. And a mottled finish with our secret weapon, rather than broad highlights. Oh, and you know the best part? Remember how I have repeatedly emphasized the importance of trigger control? The paint that you saw me mix is all the red paint that I use for the entire vehicle. If you have any experience airbrushing, this should give you an idea of just how careful I was with that trigger. Who said that you can't be precise with the Badger Patriot, eh? If you want to know what happened after this, well, this is what happened. I spent a long time playing out disaster scenarios in my head of how my masking would go horrendously wrong and how my candy red would be ruined. So I applied both masking tape and some liquid mask to make sure that wouldn't happen. The good news is, it didn't. Spraying the gold was a pleasure, and when the time came to remove that masking, I was greeted with this. Now I don't have a ton of footage of the weathering process for this, but I can give you a preview, so to speak. After a coat of Tamiya Clear, I used the Scale 75 oils which I recently reviewed, and that worked really well. After that, I used oil brushers to create both shading and the impression of aged, weathered gold or brass. And towards the end, I also applied some dust pigments. As for the base, it was basically a project of its own, but a really enjoyable one. Weathering that by going totally crazy with enamels and pigments was a lot of fun. In any case, all of that was tied in with my aesthetic or narrative concept for this vehicle, and by extension, my upcoming Custodes army. In my mind's eye, I saw them as fighting over Gothic ruins, drenched with acid rain. So no matter how perfect and shiny their armor might have been at the start, after months of bitter fighting, even these golden exemplars would become dull. But enough talk from me. Once again, I would like to thank all of you, and in particular, our new YouTube members this month. Thank you very much, guys. Your support means a lot to me, and it helps me keep making content each month. That's all from me for now, folks, but remember, keep it up and weather it out.